If you take certain precautions, going to Bui Vien and Ho Chi Minh City may be an enjoyable way to spend your time in the city. The boulevard is lined with restaurants serving traditional Vietnamese cuisine, massage parlors, pubs, and cafes, as well as everything else you might possibly need or not need. The section of the roadway where pedestrians are allowed is rather extensive and congested, 850 meters in length, yet just 6 meters across at its widest point. Walking through the crowded street at night may be quite an exciting experience at times. In an effort to get your business, the employees at numerous pubs, restaurants, and even pharmacies will shout at you. Ignoring someone is not considered disrespectful in any context. So why should you not visit Bui Vien Street alone? Reason 1. Pickpocketing. Pickpocketing is one of the primary dangers for tourists that are walking around Bui Vien Boulevard. This kind of criminal activity is very common in tourist regions, and the Bui Vien Boulevard is not an exception to this rule. Pickpockets are criminals that target tourists who are not paying attention to their surroundings in order to steal from them. If you're traveling by yourself, you run a greater risk of being a victim of pickpocketing. For this reason, it is essential to keep a tight check on your belongings and to remain aware of your surroundings at all times. Number 2. Drugs. The availability of narcotics is another issue that has to be addressed on Bui Vien Boulevard. Even though using illicit drugs is against the law in Vietnam, it's not uncommon for people to do so on Bui Vien Boulevard, practically in the nights. Visitors need to be aware that if they are contacted by someone providing drugs, they may be placing themselves in an unsafe scenario for themselves as well as others. Not only is it against the law to consume illicit drugs in Vietnam, but the quality of the narcotics sold there is often poor, which may lead to adverse and even deadly effects. Therefore, it is essential to exercise caution and refrain from engaging in any illicit activity while you are on Bui Vien Street. Reason 3. Overpricing. In addition to these issues about safety, travelers should also be mindful of the fact that the street known as Bui Vien engages in price gouging. It's common practice to charge greater costs for products and services to tourists. Thus, if you're traveling by yourself, you run the risk of being taken advantage of and paid more than you should be. It's crucial to perform research ahead of time and have a broad sense of what items should cost in order to prevent spending more than they are worth. You should also be ready to bargain, and you should be alert of any indicators that the other party is trying to overcharge you. Reason 4. Drunkenness. A trip to Bui Vien Street might potentially put you in danger because of the huge number of intoxicated tourists and locals that congregate there. This may result in poor judgment and a higher risk of engaging in risky or aggressive conduct. When traveling by yourself, it's particularly vital to avoid intoxicating substances and to be vigilant of your surroundings at all times. Reason 5. Lack of emergency services. If there's an emergency on Bui Vien Street, it may be difficult to get in touch with emergency services because of the street's sometimes hectic atmosphere, particularly in the night. In the event of a medical or police emergency, tourists should become acquainted with the location of the closest facility of either kind and have a contingency plan ready. Reason 6. Language barriers. Visitors to Bui Vien Street who are unable to converse in Vietnamese may have a difficult time interacting with local merchants, taxi drivers, and other service providers. This might result in misconceptions and make it more challenging to locate the appropriate locations or get the appropriate services. It's possible to overcome these language hurdles and have a more enjoyable experience by traveling with a local guide or someone who knows the language of the destination. Reason 8. Cultural differences. Vietnam is a nation that has a diverse range of customs and practices in addition to an extensive cultural legacy. Visitors to Bui Vien Street who are not aware with these traditions run the risk of accidentally insulting locals or causing difficulties if they do not adhere to the conventions of the area. It's possible for tourists to avoid making any cultural gaffes and have a more polite and pleasurable experience by traveling with a local guide or with someone who is knowledgeable with the cultural norms of the destination they are visiting. In conclusion, while Bui Vien Street is a place that may be thrilling and interesting, it's essential to exercise caution and be aware of the safety problems that come with visiting the area by oneself. It's possible to reduce the likelihood of encountering these dangers and increase the likelihood that one will have a positive experience by simply traveling in a group or with a reputable local guide. Keep in mind that you should keep a tight check on your possessions, remain sober at all times, be acquainted with local emergency services, avoid engaging in activities that are prohibited, and be prepared for overpricing.